Well, our first case tonight is one that made headline news in August. Guests at a wedding party in Horndean in Hampshire discovered the body of 15-year-old schoolgirl Helen Gorrie in the grounds of Merchiston Hall Community Centre, only minutes from where she lived. Is to establish exactly what did happen that night.
Good morning everyone, how you doing? It's Paul here from Unusual Things. Now it is Thursday the 1st of August 2024 and today is quite an important day and we're here today for a crime files video. And I'm going to tell you about the story of a young girl by the name of Helen Gorrie, who at the age of 15 on the 1st of August 1992 was found strangled and half naked at this place called Merchiston Hall in Horndean in Hampshire, which is a few miles outside of Portsmouth. It's one that's obviously quite local to me. I remember it at the time, it was very sad. And there was a gentleman by the name of John Corcoran who was arrested. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the case in a moment. But what we're going to do is we're going to go inside and have a look at Merchiston Hall, just on the outside of course, and just to give you an idea of the crime scene and where, of course, Helen was found. Now, if you like the video today, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, it's absolutely free. And of course, hit that notification bell. I'm going to be a little bit discreet in here, as best I can, obviously because it is the anniversary and people might be a little bit aware of that and, you know, things may be a little bit heightened. And then what we're going to do is go and find Helen's final resting place in Waterlooville, which isn't too far from here. So we're going to have a little look and then we'll come out and we'll head to the cemetery. Now, of course, here are the grounds. And there is Merchiston Hall. Now I have found a picture which I can put up on screen of like the white tent from where, of course, Helen was found. I've never been to this area before. I think they do lots of sort of fates and things like that around here. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. Again, like I say, I am filming. I'm going to be mindful in case people come out and ask what I'm filming about and things like that. Especially with today being, like I say, the anniversary, because today's Thursday, the 1st of August, 2024. And Helen was found on the 1st of August, 1992. Alcohol cans over there. Lots of rubbish here. So I'm assuming that this is a place where some locals, maybe homeless, drunks, don't know, may use it. But there's the hall itself. Now I know we can't go in there. There's a sign up at the moment that says closed, so even there's a car outside. But it's just very unusual. For, I suppose back in the early 90s, you know, I don't know whether it was very secure then, but obviously it's a place where people would come and hang out. But it's also very sad. And it's also very sad to think that this is the last place where Helen was alive. Like I say, I'll tell you a little bit more about John Corcoran in a moment. But as always with what we do, especially on you know, the crime file ones and true crime, is that we want to tell more of the victim's story and more about their life. I don't ever do these to glamorous the perpetrator or to give them any publicity at all. But I will tell you about the case, obviously, to give you an idea about that. And we'll go and find Helen's final resting place, and we'll pay our respects there as always. Now, if you remember this case at all, from 1992, you know, please leave your comments down below. Let us know what you remember of it, because it did make national news. It was on Crime Watch. You know, there was a big, and rightly so, media presence regarding this case as well. So we'll leave here, we'll head down to Holbert Road Cemetery, and we'll go and find the final resting place of Helen, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the story as we progress through. Hi everyone, so we have now come to Holbert Road, which is Waterlooville Cemetery, which is probably about a 5 or 6 minute drive from where Helen was murdered and where her body was found. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and find Helen's final resting place in a moment, but obviously I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the case first, the situation, what happened, and then of course we'll go and pay our final respects. Okay, so as I said earlier on, John Corcoran was the gentleman, if we can call him that, that was charged with, of course, Helen's murder. Now, she'd met him the night before as he cruised around the area in his vehicle, and apparently he was quite well known to do this. He used to cruise around quite a bit and pick up the young girls, and he used to just try and give them like his business card, which had a phone number on there, and he'd tell them to get in contact with him and things like that. Now, Helen was described as a sociable girl with lots of friends who liked being out and about. She lived on an estate in Horndean, so not far from where she was found. She lived with her mum, who was Sheila, and her stepbrother Jamie, and attended Purbrook Park School. Her mother said that she was well liked and didn't have an enemy in the world. Now, she died on the 31st of July 1992, but of course was found on the 1st of August, hence the reference to today's date. On the evening of Friday the 31st of July, she spent it at home with her brother, and about 11:30 p.m. Helen said she was going to bed before coming back downstairs shortly after and leaving the house, telling her brother that she would only be a few minutes and wouldn't be too long. Now, she'd been getting ready for bed, but she had her nightdress on underneath her clothing, and it wasn't unusual for Helen to go out late, as lots of her friends lived nearby and sometimes they called for her, or she might occasionally see a friend as well. And she would sometimes get out the upstairs window and would come home usually about 1 a.m, something like that. Now, the following morning, Helen was found dead in the grounds of Merchistown Hall, Horndean Community Centre, where we had just been earlier on. She was found left in plain view of a footpath 100 yards behind the hall, and she was actually found by some wedding guests, which is terrible, really. You know, it's terrible that it happened to a young lady, and then to be found by a wedding guest, you know, because that's also their day where they're supposed to be celebrating and having the best time ever, and then find the body of a young lady. Must have been awful. And the police believe she may have died roughly around 12:30 a.m. She was half naked, indicating murder, and they believe that it was sexually motivated. Although no evidence of sexual assault, police said the fact that her clothing had been interfered with indicated the motive may have been sexual, and said she had been murdered on the spot where she was found. Several witnesses came forward to report seeing a girl matching Helen's description near Merchistown Hall that evening. 2 independent witnesses had reported seeing a girl who looked to be very similar to Helen, waiting at a bus stop by the Portsmouth Road at the junction with Catherington Lane. And they saw her getting into a car that may have been a Ford Escort, which had come up along Catherington Lane as well. Around midnight, a woman driving along Portsmouth Road saw a man come out of the bushes on the side of the road, and he appeared to not want to have his face seen by the driver. At 12:30 a.m, a man driving down the same stretch of road saw two men standing several yards apart, but the driver got the impression that they were together. He said one of the men looked suspicious and seemed to be worried that someone had spotted them. Now, the police believe that this is the sort of time that Helen was killed. Her case was featured on the influential Crime Watch TV programme 3 months after her murder in October, where it was also revealed that an unidentified man who had gone into the One Stop supermarket in Catherington Lane on the 3rd of August, telling the cashier that he had seen Helen on the road at around 12:30 a.m. that night. And that's the time that the police believe, roughly, that she was killed. When the cashier asked if he had told the police this information, he began acting very strangely and left quickly, saying that he hadn't. And the cashier commented all he really wanted to do was get away from me as quickly as he could. A few days after Helen's murder, unemployed 21-year-old John Anthony Mark Corcoran of Warren Park, Havant, was questioned about the murder. His business card had been found in Helen's bedroom, and he did have some scratches on his arm. Helen had met Corcoran the night before she died as he cruised the streets of Horndine in his battered Ford Escort car. He was known to cruise around the area in his vehicle looking for young girls to hand business cards out and to seek sex from them. It was discovered that Helen had written in her diary before she had left on the night she died, saying, "John phoned me up, the one I met last night. He wants me to go for a drive with him and his friends." On the night Helen went out, Corcoran had again been driving aimlessly around Horndine with his friends. His friends said that he had left them for roughly around 40 minutes, saying he had to meet someone. Now, he was said to prey on young girls, and the police believe that he had tried to force himself on Helen and she resisted, and that he strangled her and smothered her with her own clothing. Although he had already been a suspect in Helen's murder and been spoken to by the police, Helen's sister would later recount Corcoran had attempted to flirt with her and ask her on a date while having an affair with one of her friends, with the sister saying, "I couldn't believe it when he tried it on with me. I was disgusted." She added that it was known he was interested in kinky sex. Corcoran of Plumley Walk in Havant was tried and found guilty of Helen's murder in December 1999. He was also charged with the rape of a 14-year-old girl in 1990, and it was heard that the scratches on his arm had come from Helen as she fought him for her life, as supported by the fact that 2 of her false fingernails were at the scene. A witness who had previously given Corcoran an alibi had come forward to tell the police that he had lied in the early stages of the trial. It had been reported that DNA evidence which linked Corcoran to the murder scene would be part of the prosecution case, and a year previously it had been reported that investigators had identified DNA from the material under Helen's broken nails and on her clothing, but this evidence was not used at trial. Sentencing, the judge told him, "There is no doubt in my mind that you have a very strong streak of arrogance in your character. On the night in question in 1992, you were determined to have sex with that 15-year-old girl, whether she liked it or not. She rebuffed and resisted you, and you strangled her." Corcoran was sentenced to life imprisonment. Lead Detective Colin Smith reacted by saying Helen was a popular, lively but vulnerable adolescent who was killed by a nasty and vicious man who preyed on young girls. In January 2003, Corcoran had his conviction for the murder overturned on appeal. The grounds were that the judge had misdirected the jury in his summing up. After he was released, Corcoran moved back to his home in Plumley Walk, Warren Park, Havant. Police said they had no plans to reopen the investigation and that they were not looking for anybody else. In 2018, on journalist Mark Williams Thomas's documentary show The Investigator, a British crime story, Helen's case was included on a list of cases that he felt could not be ruled out as possible victims of serial killer Peter Tobin. However, a large police investigation named Operation Anagram examined the possibility of Tobin having claimed more victims and ended in 2011, having found no evidence to connect him to any further cases. So there we have all the information there about the murder of 15-year-old schoolgirl Helen. Now, as with all these crime file ones, when you're working with child murders and victims of crime of a young age, it's very hard, and especially this one, because like I say, at the time I remember it so vividly, being on the news and literally being like a few miles up the road from where I live, and at the time I was a 20-year-old man, and to think that a young 15-year-old girl that had her whole life ahead of her had just had it snatched, and for Corcoran to later have his appeal overturned because of the way that the judge instructed. But with further investigation, no one else was really looked into. And it makes you wonder, did Corcoran get out and just like get away with it after a few years in prison? Or did he not do it? It's debatable. The evidence from what there is and what we've spoken about says that basically he did. But it then got overturned because of the judge's order. That's the question we have to ask ourselves, isn't it? You know, sometimes when the judge directs a jury, you know, do they say things that may try to influence the jury? Should they just let the evidence speak for itself? Now, I know they have to obviously guide because the judge is the expert in law. So he has to obviously guide the jury as to what they can and cannot do. However, sometimes it can be very influential, and all it takes is someone on the jury who's a bit wishy-washy, undecided, not really sure what way to go. Then that speech can be very powerful given by the judge. And, you know, I've seen it many times. Years ago, one of my many jobs, I worked as a dock officer in the courts, and I used to see like how a judge would give his or her speech, and how sometimes it would have such a major influence on the people in the jury. There you go. That's the question we have to ask, isn't it? Anyway, I've been having a good look around, and Helen's grave's over there. As you know, I don't do the thing on the true crime graves, crime files. But we'll go and pay our respects now. Okay, now, as always, when we do crime files ones, and especially children, bought us some flowers from all of us. Okay, so we're going to place these on Helen's final resting place. Now, it doesn't look like anyone's put some fresh flowers here for a while, which is sad really, but especially like today being the anniversary of which he was found. I will show you the headstone in a moment. I just want to get these in. As we all know on previous visits, this is not my speciality, okay? But I'll try my best. I think with me that's as good as we're going to get. So we'll come over here and we'll have a little look. Cherished memories of a loving daughter and sister, Helen Gorrie, murdered at the tender age of 15 years, taken from us, oh so sudden, a tiny flower lent not given, to bud on earth and bloom in heaven, with Helen's picture there. I'll take these flowers and throw them in the bin in a minute, the old ones. Tough one as always for crime files. Bless you, Helen. I'm so sorry you had your life taken at such a tender age. It's no age at all, is it? It's very sad. And our thoughts are with you. And we hope from all the viewers and myself that you like the flowers we've given to you. Bless you, darling. I'm just going to put these in there. So, there we have it. The final resting place of Helen Gorrie. Taken so young, 15 years old. It's always hard to know what to say on these ones because of the sensitivity of it and the circumstances in which that person lost their life. But it's a shame because the flowers looked quite old, but you know, sometimes, not the new ones I've just put down, but the original ones, but sometimes, you know, people put them down and then they might come back 2 weeks and put some more down. So we can't always judge it by that ever. And that's what, you know, sometimes people say to me, oh, there's no flowers on the grave. And we must remember that when people put them down, over time they go, and people can't always come every week, you know, and we've got to respect that, because people have to get on with their own lives, whether they're celebrities, victims of crime, war heroes, whatever. Their families have to get on with their lives, and they can just put down the flowers as and when. And it's just a case of sometimes when I turn up, there may not be any there, because it might have been 2 weeks previously or something like that they've gone. Anyway, thank you as always for watching. Yeah, sad. I hate doing these ones, but it's bittersweet, because I think that we need to tell their story. We need to keep their memory alive. We can't just let these people, victims of crime, no matter what age they are, we can't just let them go and just, you know, enable their families to remember them. We have to remember them as well, because a young girl lost her life through being a young girl, and you know, it's very sad. Anyway, thank you. Please hit the like button, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified when the next video comes out. And most importantly, please leave your comments down below if you remember this case. And I will see you all on the next one. Take it easy.